If you look at every puzzle problem that exists in the world, one thing that could fix it or influence it quickest is a meaningful conversation. There isn't a problem or challenge in the world that cannot be solved by more people knowing exactly what to say. Taking the success of the book, Exactly What to Say, and saying, well, how do we play bigger than the book? How do you find hundreds of other ways that can show up in a never-ending story? People think that growth looks like, when I get there, everything's going to be awesome. My viewpoint is to say, how do I build like an infinity journey? So Exactly What to Say has grown from being just a book to then courses and licensed IP that lives inside corporations. That has then grown into us owning the trademark for all things Exactly What to Say, building exactlywhattosay.com, building an Exactly What to Say YouTube channel, dozens of different things that live outside of the book. I would look towards for guidance as a business is Tabasco Sauce. What I love about Tabasco Sauce, it's on almost every table in every restaurant. It gets reordered without much thought, and it often makes the dish, but it never steals the show. How can I build a business that can be that kind of condiment to other people's operating system? And then I can live inside the DNA, and then I can do the same again over here, and the same again over here, and the same again over here.
And it's funny how everything that you teach around words, curiosity, empathy, and action are in the center of success and everything.
If you can be curious enough to understand context before you jump to conclusions, be empathetic enough to be relatable, to realize that this isn't about you, it's about how you're in service of them, and then have the courage to invite people to make big, bold actions, you can change the world. If your company is not big enough to contain the hopes and dreams of your employees, then expect them to leave.
Everyone can look at like your success, the numbers, but as far as like why people should listen and care about the words that they say and like why it matters, what would you tell a viewer of why words are so important?
If you look at every puzzle problem that exists in the world, period, whether this is a personal relationship that's not going well, whether this is a point of conversion inside your business, whether it's people that are in your team that are underperforming or not joining you or not committed to the mission, in almost every one of those scenarios, the one thing that could fix it or influence it quickest is a meaningful conversation. And finding the right words at the right time, I've learned to be a superpower. And I now believe that there isn't a problem or challenge in the world that cannot be solved by more people knowing exactly what to say. So I'm just obsessed about how people can utilize words with more efficacy, with more efficiency, more love, more care, to help achieve outcomes more often where both parties win.
When did you start really diving into the words? When did it become so important to you?
I've been in the training and helping people to be able to achieve more commercial success for over 25 years. That's been a part of my world of helping others to be able to ask for money for more freely, ask for help more freely, ask for more freely. In almost every one of those scenarios, you could be giving strategies, sharing ideas, giving structures and frameworks, and people will be like, yep, got it. But what exactly do I say? And then when you study top performers in any area, you'd start to see that, yes, they have hustle, yes, they have hard work, yes, they have endeavor, yes, they have product knowledge. But often the kicker that moves them from being pretty darn good to being freaking awesome is in all the repetitive moments that they step into, they have built efficacy in their word tracks. Is they reach for something that is a known sequence of words as opposed to making it up on the spot. And there are a lot of myths around is some people have got it and other people haven't, and he or she has just got the gift of the gab, or they're great at having confidence in those environments. And I've learned that just isn't true. So I've been obsessed about this for 25 plus years, and I'm still curiously obsessed about it today. I'm not pretending to have this figured out. I'm just really trying to learn more about how language shows up every day and the impact it has on other people's performance. And we're here right now at a large convention. There are going to be somewhere like 8,000 people in an audience. Any 1 hour of programming isn't 1 hour of programming. That is 8,000 hours of productivity of some of the highest performing real estate agents in the country right now. That's a serious time commitment. So does that conversation from stage to 8,000 people matter? Yes, of course it matters. But so does the one-on-one conversation that is happening in the hallways. So does the interactions over dinner tonight. And the sad thing about an event like this one that we're currently recording at is I would argue the majority of people that come to this event will leave with significantly less value than they could have got from this event because of the conversations they didn't have that were just an arm's reach away.
Talk to me about that. What do you mean?
Let's take any group of 6 people. How many of them have questions that they want to ask of each other?
Probably a handful.
Mm-hmm. And how many of them are looking at their agenda and thinking how they can pre-purpose more conversations and find more time to be able to sit and have the one-to-ones, the meetups, the podcast recordings, the corridor conversations? Who's choosing who they walk between sessions with? Who's planning a debrief 30 minutes with somebody's opinion they value, following some of the insights they got from some of the presentations.
Yeah.
There is immense value that could be appreciated if some more thoughtful thought went into it. Instead, what we think is the value comes from just showing up, and that's not true.
You're known for obnoxious prep. That's a point yet. For talks, you'll go in early in the morning, get the scene of the room.
Yep.
For people who don't really understand the amount of work that it takes to write a book or to speak on stage at this high level, and the amount of prep to do something at such a high caliber, can you explain the difference of just going to give the talk versus being obsessed?
I think the gateway is when you can shift where the responsibility lies. If the responsibility lies on you to deliver your talk, then prep can be here, and you can learn your lines and understand your slides and be on time, and you can go deliver what it is that you plan to be able to deliver. But the true responsibility is actually to serve the moment. That's a different responsibility. And not just your moment, the moment of everybody else who's in that audience. So if I'm gifted the responsibility to speak to an audience of a few thousand people, I have to see that for what it is and say that I'm responsible for 5,000, 6,000, 8,000 hours of productivity. I should make it count. So the prep goes into then looking at is, who are those people? Where are they at? What is their current vibe at this moment in time? Who am I to them? Who are they to me? What can then be considered about the environment as a prop? Where am I sitting in the agenda? What did they hear before? What are they hearing next? What does the energy in the room look like? What does the lighting look like? What can I utilize from a staging and a props point of view? How might I choose to be able to bring an energy towards this? Like if it was a relay race, am I the anchor that is looking to be able to set the scene for everybody else to be able to chase? If I'm opening, I'm setting the scene. If I'm back end of a program, how am I trying to put a bow on this so that what it can do is it can feel like the end of somebody else's beginning and middle? If I'm in the middle of the programming, what distance do I need to carry that respects who went before me and respects who's coming next? And these are all questions that you're asking yourself in prep that have nothing to do with your material. They're all to do with like how you're going to play your material. And the best example that I can bring to this is if you think like a musician. Many musicians can play the exact same song 100 different ways. And if there's 12 people in a back bar and it's 2 a.m. in the morning, the acoustic version of their greatest hit is going to be very different than if it's the stadium tour with 35,000 people in it and you're opening the show with it. And as an expert presenter, your job is to understand what moment are you in service of and how do you utilize your skills, your material, your expertise to serve the moment to the greatest of levels. And the stakes just change completely. From there, it isn't like I'm ready or I'm not ready. It's like, how do I keep getting ready so that I can be fully present in the moment to serve the moment where I've considered the multiple different stakeholders and the multiple different objectives that could exist.
You have a great story about 15, 20 years ago, a pub in Brigham.
Yeah.
A musician. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I was privileged to be involved in a bar in Birmingham in the UK. And what happened was a young touring musician at the time, bright red hair, happened to be known by the name of Ed Sheeran, wasn't anywhere near as famous as the dude is today at the time, was playing songs in the bar. And what happened is the power cut. And what he decided to do was to, rather than stop the show, pulled like a high top bar table into the middle of the dance floor and continued the show by having everybody come around him and light it up and with the phones, etc. And it was a great example of somebody leading and understanding that regardless of what happens in the moment, your job is to be able to perform. And still one of the smartest things that I can never forget, even from that moment, was his ability to then collect the data from everybody that were in the room at the end of the concert. So there might have only been 100 people in the bar, but I'm pretty sure he got close to 100 people's cell phone numbers or Hotmail email addresses or whatever else he was collecting at the time. And it wasn't put your business cards. It was like a little pad that you would tear off. So it's just put your details in there and I'll show you some of the recordings.
Have you seen like Ed Sheeran younger? His voice like was nowhere near what he was today.
Right. I mean, but you could study anybody's story in this. Yeah. Is people who are superstars today, they sucked a lot more at earlier points in their career. I think those people that have gone on to achieve any levels of greatness is because they decide it's a profession. It's because they're on the relentless quest for better. It's because they're humble enough in their own ego and healthy enough in their own ego to say, I'm good, but I ain't got it yet. the only way you can keep falling in love with your work again is when you keep changing the stakes. I look at musicians that have lasted the test of time and they're 30 years, 40 years, 50 years into a career. Some of them have to go out and gig a song that they wrote the lyrics to. And they're 60, 70, 80 years of age, but they wrote the lyrics to that song when they were 19 in a very different world. And you catch up on interviews on those scenarios and you'll often realize they've had to create new meaning for the words they wrote in their teens or their 20s so that what they can do is deliver a different level of passion so it still feels true. And we all have to do that as entrepreneurs. It's like, how do you allow your experience to grow your wisdom to allow you to keep falling in love with what you already knew was good? And the mistake you see many people make, particularly even from a marketing point of view, is they get bored with what works and try to switch it out for something that's exciting to them. Instead of saying, how do I keep falling in love again and again and again with what works, but do the work to make it relevant for how a platform has changed, a marketplace has changed, a relationship between you and that person has changed.
Why do you think entrepreneurs get bored of and want something new versus trying to get better in that difference?
Well, most people who enter into entrepreneurship are naturally creative people. And we are trying to build something that doesn't yet exist. And we want to be able to build a different world and create new normals. You have to learn to say, how do you do that inside what's already working, as opposed to get distracted by the new and next. So it's not stop doing it. It's understand that you are a builder, you are a creator, you're a builder and you're a creator, but build the world you decided to build. Don't build a house and then ignore that house and go try build another house over here and then build another house over here. You've got to know what game you're playing and then stick to it and then bring that creative energy back towards it. I think the challenge that many entrepreneurs bump into is, particularly in today's world, is there are way too many shiny pennies. There's way too many, here's what you should be doing, here's what you could be doing. Let's try and make this simple, is in order to win today, you have to build a brand and you have to take people with you. And there have to be an army of people, whether it's employees, customers, fans, followers, whatever it might be, that like who you are, like what you're going, and like what you stand for. So if you reverse that, then you realize that nobody wants to be a part of your test. If you're just trying something out, no one's going to buy into the thing that you're not yet bought into. Yet many entrepreneurs destroy their opportunity for success because they're not showing the marketplace that they're truly committed. They're not showing that they're on board to be able to actually do this thing to a high standard. So the self-sabotage is real.
And I think that ties into the brand that you've built, the idea that you've aligned to one word, exactly what to say. You've productized the brand. Can you talk through how that is important as a business owner and as a speaker to go down that path of building that kind of productized brand?
We live in an era where there's a lot of emphasis put on the creation of building personal brand, building personal brand, building personal brand. And more than that is the ability to be able to build something that's bigger than self. As much as personal brand is important, my goal has always been to build something that's bigger than self. I've had a belief that if I was to die, what would somebody do with my business? And chances are it'd be broken up for parts, or some private equity company would take it on board and do something creative with it to be able to build a bigger brand. And my thought was, well, why wait till I die to be able to do that? Why not start thinking about something that has longevity whilst I'm still in the driving seat and can control it? Taking the success of the book, Exactly What to Say, and then the knownness that came with that and saying, well, how do we play bigger than the book? How do you draw out the essence of what lives inside that core message? And then how do you find hundreds of other ways that can show up in a never-ending story? People think that growth looks like being able to say, when I get there, everything's going to be awesome. But then when I get there, everything's going to be awesome. And when I get there, everything's going to be awesome. My viewpoint is to say, how do I build an infinity journey that says that we just keep adding to the body of evidence that supports what we're building from a brand point of view. So Exactly What to Say has grown from being just a book to then being derivative books into other industries, which is where the real estate book came from. That has then grown into saying that we have courses and licensed IP that lives inside corporations. That has then grown into us owning the trademark for all things Exactly What to Say, building exactlywhattosay.com, building an Exactly What to Say YouTube channel, where we're talking about dozens of different things that live outside of the book. And my business mentor, my business model, my kind of Mount Rushmore that I would look towards for guidance as a business is Tabasco sauce. You can see here, I got chili peppers on my socks this morning. And what I love about Tabasco sauce, so this will make sense in a second, is it's on almost every table in every restaurant. It gets reordered without much thought. and it often makes the dish, but it never steals the show. How can I build a business that can be that kind of condiment to other people's operating system? And then I can live inside the DNA of something that is being built and structured. And then I can do the same again over here, and the same again over here, and the same again over here, the same again over here. So we think about EWTS right now as more like an operating system. It is a body of work that can support other people's bodies of work, and that gives it an infinite growth trajectory. Here's the downside though, Andrew. It's a little bit more organic in terms of growth than a straight line strategic. I got a clear goal, we've got a clear action plan, I'm gonna go get it done. Some of it is like you just have to keep giving birth to all these little new ideas and then nurturing them like you'd nurture a garden, and deciding what you want to put fertilizer on and what you want to be able to cut back. But when people say to me, what is the vision for EWTS in a decade? I don't have a clear answer to that because it's now no longer just mine. We have 53 certified guides that are licensed practitioners of the work. We've built an infrastructure that's big enough to be inclusive of their dreams, not mine. And that means that the future is unknown, and that's exciting. And I believe that part of the future of modern business is exactly that, is how do you create environments for your customers and your employees and your aligned partners to grow and live the kind of lives that they want, as opposed to building these very finite finish line blocks. We're so far away from the tactics that work now. We're so far away from the, what's the one play, or can you just build me a website? Can you just get me to number one on Google? Like, what do I need to do to get my ads to be able to convert? Like, is these one touch wins, they don't exist anymore.
You have a lot of experience in the media side.
Yeah.
But I was curious to get your thought and framework of how you think around brand.
Yeah.
Like if an agent or any other salesperson or a business owner came to you and said, hey, I want to build a brand. I want to build something that outlasts me.
Yeah.
How would you frame their thinking around, like, to get them to build a memorable brand like yours?
Okay. If you're looking to build a meaningful brand, what it's not about is your logo and your tagline and your website and your color palette and having all the shiny objects. Where it starts with who. It starts with who you're in service of. The two most important questions for every business owner to be able to answer is, one, who are the people you're looking to help? And then two is, what are the problems or challenges you're looking to help those people overcome? What often happens is people think about those questions and try and come up with universal catch-alls. I'm looking to help first-time home buyers to be able to find their first home. Got it. Okay. Well, that isn't a specific enough of a who and a problem to have you being able to stand out and create a unique brand. So I invite people to not think about answering that question once. I'd invite them to think about answering it 3 times. 3 hyper-specific people with 3 hyper-specific problems. And then if you can get 3 very specific people and 3 hyper-specific problems, you're starting to build a series of what I would call I help X achieve Y statements. And it can be, I help young professionals in the city be able to realize that buying a home is a smarter move than renting. It could also be is I help aspirational agents that are looking to be able to step up from their first broker position into something that's more long-term and to drive a career in it. It could be that I'm looking to help families that bought a home in 2020, 2021 be able to find their forever home. But you see how adding those 3 levels of specificity to it now, there's a clearer picture on who you're for. If you can build a 3x3, you can write 9 I help X achieve Y statements. If you can write 9 I help X achieve Y statements, what you can then do is ask yourself the question 3 times behind each of those, so what, so what, so what? What you've now got is 27 points of access towards the brand that you're building that is people-focused, problem-focused, and knowledge about the results of solving those problems. You're not going to market with a solid singular value proposition. You're going to market with a well thought out dynamic value proposition. And I view it more like a diamond, right? Is it needs all of its facets to be shiny, but you get to show the facet to the right person in the right way. Once you've got that, you can build a body of work that proves that you help those people solve that problem. And that's where your brand will be created from. If you have brand values, say for example is one that is that you are luxury and elegant. Well, if you're producing content around those 27 facets, well, the content needs to be luxurious and elegant. And you can ask yourself in the production of what it is you're doing is, are you adding to the story of your brand or are you detracting from the story of your brand? Are you becoming more like the business you want to become or are you becoming less like it? And when you realize nothing is neutral, you can start to make more informed decisions. because everything's helping or hurting. Nothing is neutral. And if it was neutral, it's a waste. Shouldn't have been doing it. And I was on a small group recently supporting an agent friend of mine's mastermind group. And it was a group of talented, busy, working mums that run real estate teams struggling with what to do for content ideas. And they're saying the avatar of the person they're looking to be able to attract is someone like them that is a busy mum trying to be able to keep it all together. And she's saying that she can't do videos because she can't get her hair looking right and she doesn't have the time to be able to do her makeup, and she wants to be able to show up as perfect to attract people who are imperfect. Yeah. I'm like, it ain't going to work.
Lopsided.
Completely lopsided. Is you have to do a good job of being able to understand what your truth is, understand who you're for, and then keep telling your truth as many ways as you possibly can, and the brand gets created out of it. There are 4 relentless areas of focus. 1 is visibility, 2 is credibility, 3 is authenticity, and then 4 is availability. If we look at them independently, visibility, right? It doesn't happen unless somebody saw you do it. So many people are brilliant in the background. It's like, how are you building a body of evidence? And it didn't happen unless you got a photograph to prove it. It didn't happen unless you got a video to prove it. You've got to be able to prove you are what you say you are. Credibility is something that should always be focused on too. And I believe that every human being should always be working on their future biography. So if you're going to be introduced at an event or introduced for an award, or you're going to be recognized by your organization for some degree of success in the future, what are they going to say about you that's not true today? And then you can get to work on being able to backfill that resume. Like if you want to be introduced in the future as a best-selling author of, most downloaded this of that, highly recognized for this, award-winning this, etc. If you want those accolades, then you can actually reverse engineer towards those accolades if that's important enough to be able to work in your future bio. And that's what I look at from a credibility point of view. What's missing? And most people are missing case studies, they're missing logos, they're missing photographs of examples of people they've helped in the past. I know there's a lot that I'm sharing here, Andrew, but everybody that's looking to be able to make a buying decision with anybody is almost always thinking, have you done this before? Have you done it recently? And have you done it for someone like me? So you want to be able to answer yes, yes, yes to that to convince people that you're the right choice. You want to de-risk yourself. And that's the credibility piece. When you're building a brand, have you got a body of assets that says, I've done this before, I've done it recently, I've done it for someone like you. Now, if you don't know who the you is, what evidence are you trying to collect? So there's a lot there. And then authenticity is you have to care about the problem that exists for the people that you care about, even when you're not getting paid. The speaking industry blows my mind because like during the pandemic, the speaking industry got fairly heavily disrupted. For realtors, that means like caring about the problems that are existing in your community, caring about the impact that new construction in certain areas could have on other people's neighborhoods, caring about what changes in road infrastructure could have towards the affordability of houses, the access to houses, what this does to be able to reduce commute time from new areas, etc. Like, there's so much you can care about. This is, I give a shit, not just when I'm getting paid. And the more you do that, the more your brand grows. Only then the availability piece makes sense. You're then saying, well, what am I doing to create points of access to my brand that all the people I care about can do business with me in some way? That's why we think about everything from a $10 book to a $35,000 certification continuation to $5,500 masterclasses to online courses to keynote speeches. That's how the product set gets built. It isn't build the product and then find the people. It's find the people and then craft the products that then can give people access and give them available solutions that are right for them.
Looking at the speaking industry, you innovate, you have all these different things that you try, you test, and Chris said like you're one of the smartest people around building a business around speaking. If you could change one thing in the speaking industry, what is that one thing that you're really focused on?
If I could change one thing for who?
The people in the industry, the speakers, everyone that you are trying to serve and trying to help.
Mm-hmm. I would love more organizations to have more awareness about how strategically aligning with speakers could have a greater value impact upon the overall commercial outcomes that businesses are looking to use. As a result of which, I think speakers are underutilized and underpaid, under-rewarded, under-recognized, because they're used as intelligent entertainers to be a placeholder on side the agenda of large corporate events on repeat. Now, it's okay if that's the role that you needed somebody to play, but if you choose the right speaker and then you're giving them the mind share of that audience, that value can be appreciated for all parties far greater than what just happens in that 60 minutes from the platform. What could that look like? That could look like what's created in teaser engagements ahead of time. It could be more time understanding what the strategic goals and objectives are of the organization and allowing the speaker to be more creative about how they could address some of those needs. But it's also then looking at saying, well, how do long-term relationships then foster post that moment? Big brands paid massive money for celebrity endorsements to win exposure towards their product offerings. Organizations create celebrities inside of an environment by putting somebody on the platform who then crushes, and then they realize none of the retained value they could have got from a celebrity that they just created for their audience. If businesses could get smart enough to be able to capitalize upon that for them, the speaker could be rewarded at a higher level, could deliver more value to the organization as a whole, and everybody would win.
You are kind of the embodiment of that within the real estate industry. Yep. You didn't just speak. You started building a brand. You started implanting yourself with Chris, Jimmy, Keller Williams, all of these companies. Yep. So for someone else who might want to go down that path, or for the organization that's looking at like a future Phil Jones, yes, how do they think through like, okay, we just don't want to just put this person on the pedestal, have them come speak, and everything washes away after that? What are some of the things that could be like, okay, this can be a business relationship that can benefit both parties?
There's a few parts to this. One is to realize that your value is only valuable where it is both appreciated and it's appreciating. And that means the timing for that value needs to be well considered. For many people in the speaking point of view, is you have to know enough about the business you're trying to help to learn what value could be. You being able to offer, well, I could do you more videos, I could do you more breakouts, I could create custom webinars, etc. That might not be valuable if you don't understand the needs of that business. You adding extra time might not be valuable. You have to learn what is truly valuable towards that organization. And some of that is the work that you do that nobody else sees. It's what you do in the dark. Learning the industry, interviewing people, understanding what the real puzzles are. Because what then happens is you can say, well, thanks for giving me the access to all that prep, but you've become indoctrinated inside that organization. You've learned the acronyms, you've learned the lingo, you've had some conversations with frontline workers, you've learned the strategic goals of the leadership team. And now what you have is something that is valuable. What you have is insights. What you can then do is you can say, well, as a result of all the research I've done to get ready for today, there are a number of insights I'd love to be able to share with you. You could either find helpful to use on your own, or we might be able to explore some ways that we can further look to be able to develop the relationship from here. And almost always people want to know what those insights are. And if you time them well, you're not trying to be able to say, I'm going to stick it in a report and send it to you, like there's a period on it, it's done. You're going to plan a meaningful conversation post your still the show, I'm going to be a celebrity moment. And now you're ready. And when I approach most strategic speaking opportunities, I try to think about how do I get paid three ways. So how do I look at it and go, well, I'm being paid for my engagement fee. I'm also looking to grow value where there is some core client here that I'm on the same team of which there might be some retained revenue or some project-based revenue that's attached to it. And then I'm also thinking about how can I do business with the people that are in the audience that doesn't detract from the main thing. The mistake that many people make is they try to be too much of the show. If you want to exist long-term inside somebody else's bigger vision, you have to understand that you're a bit part player and you don't want to be more than that. Because when you step up to be more than just a condiment, you're now trying to fight with the entree. People don't want two entrees, but they don't mind a special sauce. So look to be the ever-present special sauce.
It's like a sports team. There's not usually just one player who's making the team win.
And you need to know your role sometimes and just step back into line. Sometimes sit back on the second and the third row. Don't be visible. Just because you have something to say, don't say it every time. You don't want to be the person who always has the important last word.
So as an agent, as an example, they could look at all of this and be like, well, I don't want to just help first-time home buyers. I don't want to just say I work with these type of people. You've had this success with the sports clubs that you've been with. You built a massive real estate property business. You could have said, I don't need to just speak really build myself a brand within the real estate industry. But you did. Mm-hmm. So can you explain the level of thinking in, like, for example, agents say, well, I don't want to shut out other people who would work with me just because I'm trying to build a brand in this defined area.
Well, consumers want to work with specialists, not generalists. If you are looking to work with multiple markets, you still are better positioned to say that I want to specialize in a specific group of people first. It doesn't mean that you have to specialize on that group of people 7 days a week, 365 a year, right?
Yeah.
You can be all in on first-time home buyers, so that when you're speaking to a first-time home buyer, they're like, you're the guy or girl that helped first-time home buyers. But you can also create an ancillary luxury brand that's trying to get your listings into a premium neighborhood. But you have to dissect the shop window out a little so people understand that you're not trying to convolute the brand message. And we see this in the speaking space sometimes. Is I have my agency business, Orange and Grey. We have the Exactly What to Say brand. The Phil M. Jones brand still exists. You can decide like what sits in each of those different brands. I have an Instagram channel. Exactly What to Say has an Instagram account. There's different content on both. The expectations of what can be done between those two different brand identities is unique. And the same from different newsletter platforms, different website platforms, etc. You can tell different narratives if you re-separate out the brand. But you cannot be all things to all people until you've been something to someone. If you're good enough for first-time buyers and you're good enough for luxury listings and you're good enough to be able to recruit brand new agents, then turn them into top producers. Well, if you're anywhere between those three vectors, then chances are you might be able to help with that. A friend of mine is speaking here over the next couple of days, a guy by the name of Rory Vaden. If you're not familiar with Rory, check out Rory's work. And he talks about when you're building a brand is you have to break through the wall. And this was a concept that was taught by another speaker friend of ours called Peter Sheehan. And what people try to do when they're looking to build a brand is they keep coming up with different messages for different people, and they keep hitting different spots on this wall. What Peter taught once and what Rory's made famous is this idea of breaking through Sheehan's wall is to find the thing that you're good at, that you're the best in the world at, that your message is pure and clear on, that you're prepared to show up for and repeat, and just keep hitting and 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 keep hitting. And then you get to be able to break through the wall when you keep hitting there. And if you go back in everybody else's other story is you'll see that there have been really hyper-focused niches where people got to be able to position themselves as the top 1% of the top 1%. And even if I look at where I got the oxygen to be able to run long term in building a business here in North America from moving from the UK, is I was probably the US's number one pick to go to for sales training and business growth advice for independent hearing care clinics in North America. Nobody in this world knows that. Because guess what? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But my agency business supports independent hearing care clinics for North America. Like after me building that niche and getting famous in that niche, I then backfilled it with a business that now operates. And actually my business partner, visionary in that business now, is more famous in that space than I ever was because we built it. But we used my credibility to be able to transfer new people in. They've built it up with content. And Ollie in that business built the business of hearing as a web platform and puts 2 podcast episodes out a week and runs masterminds and shows up on webinars. And, he's the guy that helps hearing care clinics understand how to market more effectively. I gave it oxygen and runway and access to clients at the start, but his credibility has then grown. And he's still that guy, but that's not the only thing he does. We own and operate 3 other little businesses together that have nothing to do with that, but they're invisible to other people that it doesn't matter about. And this is what agents need to learn how to do, is they need to learn how to say, well, how do I know who my people are and what are the problems I'm trying to solve? And then where do I talk about that? And we do it in our relationships, right? Yeah. With your friends and your family. Like there are some things that you'll talk to mum and dad about that you wouldn't dream to talking about your work colleagues about. And that's dinner table and that's at the bar and that's at the gym and all these overlapping fields of play in groups of people. You can do the same in your brand building. So if I'm an agent right now, it's like, what's my Instagram for? What's my YouTube for? What's my LinkedIn for? What's my newsletter for? How do I micro segment my database so that what I'm doing is I'm putting the right sized information to the right people? And you can serve multiple markets, but you can't serve multiple markets at the same time with the same communications, with the same toolkit. You have to be able to view them as separate tracks. And then it's possible, but it's hard.
So do you know Ken Posick?
I do, I know Ken well.
So for anyone else who doesn't, the Orlando Real brand kind of gave that umbrella for him. A lot of people look at him or they look at like other agents in like EXP Real who are doing all this agent attraction. They're like, oh, I want my real estate business on agent attraction business. Or someone else might be like, I want this business and this business. And they start to open up all these different businesses and they look at someone like you at this level with all these different businesses, and they're like, oh, I want to do that too. Mm-hmm. But what they don't see is all the operations behind it, all the time that you took to build one and then move to the other. So how do you think through that and think through like, okay, it's time to like add something versus like, okay, I need to focus. That person that just wants to have another thing to have another thing.
Future cast it 5 years and just be sure you still want it, because you can look at a lot of additional verticals that you can plug into, and we're not short of people telling us what we should do. And whether that's a practical one-on-one of like, you know what you should do is, or whether that's you're seeing somebody else's shiny penny and think I should, is be sure you want everything, because you can have everything, but it comes with everything. Right? You can't just have the part of everything that you would like. It comes with the whole thing. Ask yourself, what if this only works as third of as well as I hope it would? Do I still want it? Because if you're not prepared to accept it working only a third as well as you hope it would, you don't really want it. You only want it if it's easy and it goes well, and it won't be easy and it won't go well. So you probably shouldn't do it. You're not going to carry people into your vision if you're not truly committed to being able to then do that thing. So how do you know when you should add something? Is when you cannot not do it. Where it's easier to do it than it is to not do it. So the starting of, for example, my agency business in the hearing care space came from, I was being invited by my corporate clients that I was speaking and training for to go consult one-on-one with some of their premium accounts. I would consult, would write playbooks for how they could acquire more customers, put their prices up, generate more revenues, and would give them the strategic plan, and they struggled to be able to execute on the plan because they didn't have the vendor network. Right? They couldn't build the websites, they couldn't integrate the email marketing, they couldn't get social media right. So the good ideas failed at execution because they couldn't get it done. So my fix was, well, why don't I use my freelance team to be able to then start to deliver fulfillment around these two? Because it was easier for me to be able to brief my fulfillment team than to brief them, to brief a stranger that they didn't have to try and get it done. And then I realized, well, hang on, I need to get out of this intersection. So the easy way to do this, and so this is Phil and his freelancers, let's build a company, put an operating structure in, and almost self-refer to the company that's created. So when this puzzle for fulfillment comes up, it's like, I got a company that I co-founded with some experts on this. It came over here. It was easier for me to build the company than it was for me to not build the company. Same is true when we've added EWTS speakers to provide a shop window for professional speakers inside our world of certified guides. The same as we've added EWTS media as a video production fulfillment. It's easier for me to build a company that delivers that service for masses than it is for me to try and build the freelance team to be able to execute on my own standards. Is I can be the anchor tenant. You almost need to be able to say that even if this goes badly, it's still worth it. And then they're not distracting, Andrew. Like, that's the other thing, is they're not then like pulling you away from the main thing. They're actually an amplifier of what your main thing is. And then the mistake I see a lot of folks do is that they try to chase two rabbits. Yeah, we know the old saying, right? You try to chase two rabbits, you catch neither.
As like a visionary person, someone who's like kind of like the face and out there, was there something you had to learn, whether it's like around operations, around like bringing in an integrator versus visionary, like that idea of having like a partner versus not having a partner, or the right people within the team so that the business can kind of function without you so you can do what you're really good at?
The biggest lesson that I've had to learn and continually have to learn is to stay out of the freaking way. Accept incompetence, set standards and expectations that incompetence can be absorbed, and know how to do less inside my business. I don't have access to Monday.com. I'm not on any Slack channels. I don't have my own email address, and I don't know how to do a lot of things inside my business anymore. And it's brilliant because I don't know how to do it. I can't get involved. Because when I knew how to do it, I'd keep getting involved. And the growth comes from being clueless. If you want other people to operate your business, you have to trust them to operate your business. They cannot just be administrative extensions of you that are trying to do it your way, but worse. Because if they're just trying to do it your way, but worse, they're going to feel inadequate in every day, every hour of their working life. If you lead with a degree of looseness that allows them to surprise you both in a good way and a bad way, their job satisfaction is significantly different. And people will operate processes and procedures they help build and co-created, and they will resist processes and procedures and structures that were forced upon them. If people don't co-create, they're almost certainly going to resist, and that resistance creates a toxicity in the small team, even if not intentionally. They don't like it because they didn't build it.
a lot of people want to build the system and just give the system to the person and be like, follow this checklist, follow this thing. And then you have someone, Dharmesh Shah, runs a $30 billion business of HubSpot. He goes, my number one job as CEO is to reduce complexity and just cut, because as you get bigger, complexity just keeps getting bigger.
Right. And I think even any SOPs or procedural documents or checklists is they all should be Google Docs. Nothing is a PDF. Nothing is locked. These are all working documents. And then you can empower people to, like, and you don't have a 2.0 version and a 2.1 version and a 2.16 version and a 3.0 version, etc. You just have a living document that shares how that process is currently believed to be working best. Right?
Yeah.
Because like how quick is it changing? Is tech stacks are moving all over the place. The capabilities of AIs is evolving daily. The realization of how agile teams are in terms of roles and responsibilities, the creative process that says, well, like now that we do that, what else can we do? Like we have it in our business, and we both overlap in the world of video content. What is the process of me getting video back from an event? Well, that could be 1,000 different things. How do we then repurpose and how do we then utilize it? Well, that again could be 1,000 different things. The ability to cut it up and repurpose it, like the game plan for how that is happening is ever changing, ever evolving, because which platforms do we want to be able to use it on? What have we learned in the last 6 weeks in the way that those platforms have responded to us, etc.? Like, I can't write a process quick enough to be able to duplicate it. But we can have some minimum standards. We can then have questions that we ask ourselves in processes that allow us to be able to think more freely about how we maximize. And we are looking at not content repurposing, we're looking at content maximization. That says we at least do this, and then we ask ourselves this series of questions, see if there's a number of and what else is, and what else is, and what else is. And we build a series of plays that then would become like, when we do that event, what we'll do is we'll do this play, this play, this play, this play, this play, this play, this play. Running a modern business is a lot like running a sports team. You have to continually react to external conditions.
Yep.
And you might learn hundreds of plays, but you're like, nothing's ever going to go to plan.
Having an editable Google Doc and just having plays that you run.
Yeah. And adding new plays and evolving and then saying, and what else? And what did we learn from that? And it is empowering people to be able to make additions.
You ran a team of 30 to 40 people at 18 years old.
Yep.
You've been in leadership for a long time. What's been one of the biggest lessons that you've learned of hiring quality talent, A players?
It's hard, and it's not getting easier. And I think that's a big lesson in it by itself, is like there isn't somebody out there that mysteriously has got this figured out that can run ads and get superstars show up that then start quickly and start delivering returns quicker after that. What I've learned about scaling teams that I didn't know when I first started is you want two types of people. You want highly loyal, engaged members of your team, and then you want technically brilliant competence. And they can both be two different pieces. So I'd rather not necessarily employ A players. I'd rather employ loyal, committed, dedicated B players that I can trust to show up and trust to learn and trust to grow. And then anything I need an A player for, it's a hired gun. And you can find the hired gun, and that A player will be an A player for about 12 weeks, because the ones that are good enough then plow straight through you and are finding themselves in, you're starting their own venture, or that they are jumping off to some form of pasture new. And I'm really cool with that. Is, can we hire talent for necessary projects, pay premiums for it, and then realize we're going to have to do it again? And we have a simple structure to, when we're trying to hire new talent from a freelance point of view, we'll use all the same freelancing platforms that I'm sure many of you work with. But if there's a project that's required, we'll give the same project to 5 people. We don't have an interview process. So say, for example, we wanted a new graphic designer to be able to add to the team, is we'd take the same graphic design brief with $250 budget on getting something done, and would give it to 5 people and see who we enjoyed working with and see who we enjoyed the creative output from, and then pursue the ones that we like the best. And what's nice about that is everybody delivered on their project. They didn't know that they were being interviewed to be a long-term potential provider of services to our company. they thought they were doing a $250 freelance project. So there's no saying no to anybody. There's just somebody you like, you get a chance to say yes to, and you've already experienced what it's like to work with them.
Yeah.
And I think with freelancers that's more important than just the quality of the output. It's what's it like to be able to actually work with them as part of your organization.
I think this kind of all ties together a little bit, where it's like you built a brand that people also want to be a part of, and having that umbrella is a huge value proposition in comparison to some other company they could work for.
Yeah, and they can be themselves inside the brand. If your company is not big enough to contain the hopes and dreams of your employees, then expect them to leave, right? Because they're not going to give up on their hopes and dreams because you don't have a vision that's big enough. So make it inclusive of that. I believe that even guru-led, information-led, expert-led businesses are going to enter into a season of where they're going to find it harder and harder and harder to be able to win. And we've just come through a decade of people selling expertise, selling knowledge, selling wisdom as really being a unique part of the value proposition. We are very close to every human being on the planet having access to every piece of information on the planet and being able to synthesize it relatively quickly. We're almost there. So the information is no longer going to be valuable. It is the implementation of information. It's the collective emotional intelligence that can come from that group of people. It's the care and passion and, dare I say, love that exists between co-workers and that organization and the people it cares for its customer base that's going to be the differentiator. It isn't going to be knowledge and skills and application and information. It's going to be, show me how much you care about me and how I can live a better life because of interacting with you. That's what's going to differentiate from value, and how well you prove that as an employer and as a service provider will be the differentiator.
Talking about like information and all of that, you are one of the like first people I've seen execute tactical information like really well, being like a little bit selfish and asking questions. Like, for example, you can look at speakers. Some speakers are like very high level, very motivational, and then you have this dance that like Gary Vee also talks about, dirt clouds, like being able to go back and forth. Alex Hormozi has kind of talked about this, where he tried to go high level with this content, and he realized that he veered away from the main thing, which is business.
Yep.
And his audience veered away as a result. So how do you think through that when you're creating content, when you're speaking, when you're writing books, that dance between you have the logical and emotional side of people, the strategy and the tactics, and like, how do you think through that?
Well, I'd say where I'm particularly strong at this is when working with a live audience or delivering a live virtual presentation, way more than I am. Like, I've never really been overly strategic from a social content creation point of view because we've been fortunate enough to be busy enough in other ways. When I'm thinking about crafting a presentation for an audience, one key consideration is the different audiences that live inside the audience. So how are you giving amuse-bouche, snacks, appetizers, and entrees and desserts to every different stakeholder that lives inside that audience? Also, in a presentation, you have to capture attention throughout. Yeah. So my time windows that I would typically be speaking at events are in the 60 to 90 minute window. It's like a DJ set, right? It's where do you want to be able to drive energy up? Where do you want to be able to drive energy down? Where are you creating moments for thoughtful expression? Where are you creating pattern interrupts that mean that people are definitely being able to come with you? You're building this awkward recipe in a presentation that is ensuring that everybody got what they came for. But if I looked at 100 or 1,000 people in an audience, there probably is still 12 to 15 very distinctive user groups in a 1,000-person audience. The brand new person needs to have something they can implement immediately, something that's memorable that would make them laugh, and something that creates a big thought. But so does the CEO, and so does everybody in between. And so does the AV crew, and so does the catering staff. And so if you can consider all of the sub-audiences that are in there and say, well, I'm going to give you a snack that you can use straight away. I'm going to give you something meaningful that you can definitely do something with. I'm going to do something that makes you laugh and create something that has a visual memory peg, etc. But consider every audience. People will be leaving and being like, that was awesome, that was really useful. But their awesome takeaway and their useful insight, they're all different things. You're not coming into it and saying, I'm going to share 3 big ideas and everybody's going to love it. It's like, I need to interweave 35 big ideas into this in a way that people are going to be able to take from it. And sometimes that's telling the same story 3 ways, where people can see the layers that exist in it. I mean, I obsess on this stuff. We could do a whole nother episode just on structuring how a presentation can be weaved that is inclusive to everybody. But I'll land like My greatest compliment from a long presentational speech is when the camera guy or somebody from the AV crew makes a point of coming out to be like, hey, that was like, I know that wasn't meant for me, but that was really useful for something that I'm working on right now. Hey, thanks for that. Like, hey, can I grab a book? Will you sign it? And you're like, if the iMac guy or the sound guy is coming over with that, I'm like, I did good today.
When we look at like a Ken Pozek, if you look at someone like that building a media company around his real estate business to help fuel it, you just acquired a media company. I think some of the future of business is having that media side.
Yep.
Can you talk about why you acquired it and like why you think that's such a big important piece for speakers for any business?
I mean, the ability to tell story on video is irreplaceable. The amount of video that's being consumed across multiple platforms is, if you're ignoring it now, I'm like, where have you been the last decade? Yeah, the challenge now is that it isn't just about having good video. It's about having the right video at the right time to be able to tell the right narrative and the right story for the right purpose and the right platform, etc. And you can't outsource that easily anymore. Like, you have to have a committed resource to be able to get that done, because you got to change lengths of cuts. You've got to change what B-roll looks like. You've got to change what overlays look like. You've got to be aware of like what you might need for Vimeo to help storytell a page on your website is different than what you might need for your YouTube channel, is different to what you need for, Instagram Reels. And we've had a chunk of time where everyone's like, you need video and you need to invest in some professional equipment, etc. But if you don't have the resource to be able to strategically think about it and then strategically deploy it, you're getting the top 20% out of the value that could come from that. It's the easiest way to capture content is video. And even more so now with what's happening with artificial intelligence, is people are going to be able to produce pretty okay video very, very quickly with talking head style approaches that is going to be better than anything you could record yourself. Like, people can do you better than you with an AI tool, having captured something of you before and modeled your voice, and like, it's all going to be there. So the trouble we're going to come into with brand building is trust. Like, how do I know that you is actually you in any content that's being shared? And I think we're very close to being in a situation that most consumers are going to start believing that it's not you. The counter to that is, how do you produce content that shows that was more likely a real experience? And having access to professional media team, etc., you can capture real life scenarios that would be way harder to fake.
Yeah.
And we're even seeing this on YouTube right now, is if I post a video of me sharing a concept that is on stage from a live audience, that shows backdrop of live audience, and that you can see as the watcher of that there was a moment that happened here that can't be faked, versus a talking head, we're seeing 6-to-1 difference in reach.
Wow.
Could be same idea, could be same thumbnail, could be same copy, but if the video has the texture of this was in a live event experience and that other people were receiving the content well, now the screen viewer gets a chance to be able to join other people in a live environment. And I believe that the trust factor of the content, the gravitas of the content goes up. So I'm intrigued to see like how that even evolves, like how consumers interact with content.
Yeah, it's interesting. In the world of AI, person and human are getting connection and trust, and all of that's become way more important.
Right, and you want a higher barrier to entry, right? We are recording this discussion here with like 30 grand's worth of equipment in front of us, whereas others are jumping to Riverside, or they're still doing Zoom interviews and wondering why the content isn't getting the reach. Like, the consumer's expectation of what it looks, feels like, and sounds like today is that if it doesn't sound like professional television, I haven't got the time to be able to consume it. If it's not well shot, well edited, I ain't got time for that. So get it right.
You've been through the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. It's easy to look at your success and be like, oh, it's a linear curve up. But obviously it's not, and we're probably going into one of the most revolutionary decades of, well, at least my lifetime, multiple people's lifetime. Can you talk about the poem that you have on your website and the lessons that you had to learn as an entrepreneur, that if you were speaking to your younger self?
I mean, that's reasonably deep. Is I had a rough bump in the road, both life and business. I'd say 2011, 12-ish. Life wasn't in a good shape. Business was going good, but not as good as it needed to catch up with the challenges that were existing around life at the time. So it was just just a grind and just a grind, just a grind. And I was coming back from a speaking event up in the north of England, and I was driving and it was late and I was tired. And when you get emotional when you realize I'm either I crash the car, or I'm going to fall asleep, I'm going to have a panic attack, etc. And I pulled into a motorway service station, responsibly doing myself out of the car, grabbed myself some air, and I only had a notebook with me, and went to grab a cup of coffee in the service station. And what flowed out of me was a simple poem. And it was really a conversation with myself that just happened to be documented with some rhymes attached to it. I don't know why. I think sometimes we just do things that in us that need to come out. And the poem borrowed the Rudyard Kipling title, If. And if anybody wants it, you can go to, I think, philmjones.com/poem. And I think I'd put it out there at some point that if people wanted to consume it, you can find it there. But the final line, is that if somebody else can do it, can somebody else be me? And that curious question has served my life massively since there, because it allows you to be a student of success. And when you're comparing yourself to others in your growth journey, is compare the whole of you with the whole of them. Because sometimes the answer is no. Like, somebody else can be doing it, but like, they don't have kids, they don't have bandwidth, they don't have existing commitments, etc. It's like, I look at how some young people are crushing it on social media right now. They've got nothing else going on. Right? They have no other responsibilities. It's the only thing that they care about that period of time. I'm not trying to try and compete with that. Like TikTokers that are obsessing about, like, nope, not got time for that. Because if I compare the whole of, and I say if somebody else can be it, can somebody else be me, with my existing commitments, I cannot operate at the level that's required to be able to compete to win in that environment. So I choose not to play. But then you also find lots of examples where the answer is yes. Like, at that given point in time I was selling tickets for people to come into workshops to be able to become one-on-one coaching clients. I had a small six-figure business. I was doing all right, but not doing great. And I was asking that question around professional speaking, is if somebody else can do it, can somebody else be me? And you start to realize that there are people that are doing it that do have attributes and constraints, and you start to get close enough to those people, and you start to learn the truth of what's happening within those people. And anything you want to do in life, somebody else has already done it. If you can find ways of getting close enough to the people that are doing what you would like to do, then more often than not, you'll either see it, overhear it, or you can directly enter into conversation with those people and they'll share with you how they've done it. And that can fast track your success. It has to be messy before it's beautiful. So don't expect it to be like a beautiful first draft. And I repeat, it has to be messy before it's beautiful. There's no other way to be able to do it. So the entrepreneurial growth journey is really getting comfortable being able to navigate chaos whilst everybody else is losing their shit. It's like, how do you stay calm and then help other people around you navigate that chaos? Because a growth trajectory is moving from normal to new normal, right? It's from order to new order. The only way you can get from order to new order is to go through chaos. You can't just jump order to new order. So as leaders, as entrepreneurs, our job is to help people navigate chaos. Sometimes it's ourselves, sometimes it's our people, sometimes it's our customers. But excellent entrepreneurs are navigators of chaos.
And it's funny how everything that you teach around words, relationships, speaking, curiosity, empathy, and action are in the center of success and everything.
Everything. If you can be curious enough to understand context before you jump to conclusions, be empathetic enough to be relatable, to realize that this isn't about you, it's about how you're in service of them, and then have the courage to invite people to make big, bold actions, you can change the world. But instead, people think you just need to have courage to make big, bold actions and you can change the world. You need to be curious enough to understand the context first. Like, what is the field of play that you're looking to influence? Be empathetic enough to realize that it's not about you, it's about the people that live in that world that you've just got a context for, and you're a servant to those people. And you're not being courageous to push people towards things. You're being courageous enough to be able to invite them to take an action that they already knew was right for them. And you're leading that direction with an element of grace and responsibility. It's that easy, and it's that hard.
Thank you for being a living embodiment of that.
Try it, man. Try it. Try again today as well.